This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Thanks for joining us for the call today. My name is Derek Lewis, and I'm the Executive Director of Greenville First Steps. And we are a nonprofit in Greenville County that funds programs to help children get ready for kindergarten. And we are working to expand access to childcare during this really difficult time. As you know, recently families' work schedules have been thrown into chaos because of the COVID-19 outbreak, and the closing of our public schools has really worsened parents' access to childcare and to reliable services where children can be served while they return to work. Since the outbreak, nearly 30% of our established childcare providers have closed their doors statewide. Some of that is because staff are being quarantined. Some of it is extra precautions that the childcare provider has taken. Some of them are because of lack of access to cleaning supplies. It would be great to ask every family to stay home in this quarantine, but there are a large number of people, particularly in our public safety field, who need to be out providing necessary protections for our community. And so we believe that one option during this state of emergency is to support individuals who are qualified to work with children to open their homes as an in-home childcare provider on a temporary basis during the state of emergency. So the purpose of this website is to really talk you through that process and help you ask questions of yourself and make sure that it's a good fit for you. At the end, all of this information is provided on our website. This PowerPoint and video are on our website, as well as all of the links that we're referring to. So you don't have to scramble to keep notes. You'll be able to go back and see it at some other time. Hopefully in this first session, what we hope to cover is why in-home childcare is needed. And then is in-home childcare a good fit for you and your family? Is your home a good fit for childcare? And maybe some questions that you could consider. There's also a large amount of paperwork that you need to complete in order to become a registered in-home childcare provider. And while we are not a DSS organization, we do want to make sure that people understand the processes that they need to follow. You can see at the bottom of the screen both our website, greenvilleparents.com, and scchildcare.org, which is the DSS website, which will provide you access to most of this information. Before we get started, it's important for us to repeat that this Greenville First Steps is not DSS, and all the information that we're sharing here is really to help you think through how to navigate this process. But we are not a licensing entity. We don't assume any authority given to state and local regulations. So it's always important to make sure you check with DSS and with your local government agencies if you have any questions about permitting or regulations or applicable state and federal local laws. We are here to help you with any of your questions, but they are the decider. So it's really important that we are just being seen as a resource to help you think through this. So really the first question to think about is why we would provide in-home childcare. And so, we've talked a little bit about that. We know that the outbreak has really reduced access to childcare services for families. And so I just think it's important that you see this as a potential opportunity, both for you to maybe generate some revenue if you've been furloughed from some other childcare or caregiving organization, or maybe for your neighbors. It's just a great opportunity to help without needing a facility to be open to run the programs. So we've talked about some of the people that benefit. DSS is particularly interested in providing some additional flexibility around helping social services like nurses and doctors and firefighters and police officers and teachers and other public servants who are assisting our community during this time of crisis. And so, it's a great opportunity for you to open your home as a temporary in-home childcare provider and help maybe your neighbors to to really be able to be more responsive to our community's needs. There are many things to keep in mind. One of the things that's most important is that DSS has a regulation that an in-home child care provider cannot serve more than 6 children in an in-home child care setting. And that is 6 total children, including the children that you may already have as your own children in your home. So if you're a mother and you have 2 children under the age of 6, then you can really only open your home to 4 other children total, in order to still be compliant with DSS regulations. So that's just important to keep in mind. So the first question that we get asked often is, well, this sounds great. Can I just do this in my church, in the social hall of my church, or at a closed school, or I live next to a community center? The in-home child care regulations only apply to people providing care in their homes. So it's really important that you understand that there are a totally separate set of regulations for people who provide care in public facilities like churches or schools or community centers, and you would really need to check with DSS at the state level to find out more about that. An in-home child care provider is typically somebody that just opens their doors for 7 or 8 hours a day and provides activities to engage children in their homes. They provide meals and snacks during the day, and they help with e-learning and homework assignments for school-age children who may be receiving care during this time. It's a lot of responsibility, and I hope that it's something that you're interested in, and if so, then here are some more questions. The next thing you would really want to think about is your home a good fit for childcare? So look around your home. Is it the type of place that 5 or 6 kids could spend an entire day? Is your home free for children to move around and open? Is it really confined with a whole lot of furniture with sharp edges that might be dangerous for children? Do you have pets that either do respond well to children or don't respond well to children? Do you have a landlord that prohibits tenants from conducting business within their home or apartment? Is your home large enough to devote care for 5 or 6 children? Do you have a yard or somewhere outside where children can play during part of the day? Are there other adults in the household that maybe don't want to be around children or can't be around children? Do you own the home or do you rent? Do your own children have demands that might make it difficult for you to pay attention to and serve the needs of other children? The ideal in-home child care provider would be able to serve 6 children at a time for 8 to 10 hours a day. Children can be as young as infants and toddlers or up to 12 years of age. You could also, if you want to, limit your age group based on your own experience. So if you are someone who currently works for the school district and has been furloughed, then you may want to choose only to work with school age kids. Or if you're somebody that works in a child care center that's been furloughed, you may choose to only want to work with infants and toddlers. So you really have that flexibility to think about, how your home may be a good fit and what your expertise might help. In another presentation, we'll help you kind of walk through looking at your home room by room to make sure it's a good fit. But for now, it's just kind of a general question. The next question is, are you a good fit for in-home childcare? One of the things that we have experienced with in-home childcare providers is it's a pretty isolated job. It's typically you and 6 kids from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day long without breaks, without people to come in and give you support, emotional support, or even actually just help around the house. It's a pretty lonely work, but it's important work. It isn't a requirement that you have a degree in early childhood, but there is no question that experience in early childhood environments are enhanced by staff who have experience working with children. So maybe you're someone who is a teacher's assistant or works in an after-school program or a child care worker who's no longer working in the classrooms. Or maybe you're just someone who has great experience working with children in your Sunday school classes, or maybe you served as a camp counselor or a youth sports coach, or a parent who has children of their own and has children over all the time. There are lots of ways you can kind of have that experience of working with children, but it's important that you have some level of experience working with children before you get into this work. The next thing to think about is your schedule really a good fit for in-home childcare? So again, we're thinking 8 to 10 hour days with little or no breaks. A parent's going to drop off their child as early sometimes as 7 a.m. They may stay until 5 p.m. It You will be the sole caregiver for 8 to 10 hours at a time. You won't have many bathroom breaks. You can't talk to your friends on the phone. There's not really time to get any housework done. This is a job, and you would need to be able to be focused on that job for the duration of the time that the children are there. You may not have help with things like helping with meals or demands children have, like diapering or feeding or homework tutoring, or just kids that miss their parents. So you would be the lone caregiver for those. It's important to think seriously about the work that you hope to get done each day and see if providing this service is something that fits within your schedule. The next question is really one to consider. Are you approved by DSS to work in the childcare sector? So if you're currently employed or were recently employed by a childcare organization or by a school district or by an organization that professionally serves children, maybe a YMCA or maybe a church that has childcare, you probably had fingerprints done and your background check has been done through SLED and the Central Registry of Child Abuse and Neglect. So if that's true, then you can probably get a copy of that, and DSS probably will grant you a waiver to accept that as evidence that you've had a background check done. If you haven't, then you're going to have to get one done before you can be an open and registered in-home childcare provider, and that could take 4 to 6 weeks. So it's just important to kind of keep that in mind. This is really designed for people who currently are not working in childcare but have had a career in childcare before. But any request for a waiver on any of this, again, you really want to go to the state DSS office. Their contact information is at the end, and they can help you with that. Are you familiar with DSS regulations? The South Carolina Department of Social Services is the state agency that's tasked with regulating child care settings, and they have staff there who will receive your application to provide services. They'll send other DSS staff out periodically to check and make sure your home meets appropriate safety and child care standards mandated both in state and federal regulations. And their job is really to make sure that you're providing a safe and nurturing environment. They also are a great resource and can refer you to other organizations like Greenville First Steps or the Palmetto Shared Services Alliance or Childcare Resource and Referral, who can help you if you excuse me, if you find that there's a need. For new in-home childcare providers, you may be able to get a temporary waiver from some of these requirements as long as the state of emergency still exists. And they may give you time to get the necessary paperwork together or the permitting or all the checks. But once the governor lists the state of emergency or once 30 days have passed, you're really going to need to complete these steps in order to remain open as an in-home childcare provider. At the end of the presentation, we'll provide some information on how to contact DSS for waivers for any of their requirements. And so they would really be the entity you would want to make sure that you check with. Here are a couple of regulations that I think are really important because I find it really unlikely that they're going to grant waivers for these. The first one we mentioned before is that there can only be one caregiver to 6 children in a home, and that includes the children who are currently living in your home. So even though they already live there, if there are children under the age of 12 in your home, they count in your maximum number of 6. So again, if you have 2 children of your own, a school-age child and an infant, for example, then they count in that 6 kids that you can serve, which means you really could only serve about 4 more. There are also some really strict DSS regulations around infant care. Greenville First Steps recommends that you really only serve a maximum of 2 infants at a time out of your 6. So it's a really challenging work to serve infants. It takes a lot of extra time and attention to care for an infant as opposed to, say, a 10-year-old who can work maybe on their own independently on projects. So it's really difficult for one adult to provide care for more than 2 infants at a time. And so we recommend that you really would only have 2 infants. So again, if you have an infant that is your own child, then I would recommend So you really only look at adding an additional single infant at that time. Fingerprinting we've talked about a little earlier. You understand kind of the need for it. If you're a child care worker, you work for the school district, or you've come into contact with children regularly, you've probably already had these background checks done. So really, it's just a matter of getting a copy of those background checks. But again, if you haven't, if you're maybe looking at doing this as a new career path and you have not had fingerprints done, then it could take 4 to 6 weeks to get those completed. So you would really want to get that process going before you started looking for waivers. So the next section we're going to get into is some of the DSS paperwork. There are several forms here. You can see 5 that we're going to go through form by form. The links to all of these forms are provided in the presentation. So what we've provided you are screenshots of each of those forms. We're going to talk about some of the information that they're looking for on those forms, and maybe some of the questions it may cause you to ask about serving children. But all of these forms there are links on scchildcare.org that are available for you to look at the end of the presentation, and they'll also provide a lot of additional information. I'm going to start with form number 2902. So this is a license to operate a child care facility. So a few things that you'll see on here. One is that you need to indicate that you are providing family child care home, which is way down at the bottom as that bottom box. Second, it's where you might indicate maybe what your hours of operations are going to be and the days that you're going to be open. Are you going to be open every day, Monday through Friday? Are you going to only be open from 8 to 12 for people to do some work while and maybe they pick up their kids by noon each day? Are you going to be providing overnight care? These are all things that you would really want to consider that are in this form. Typically, a child care provider is open from about 8 to 6, and typically they are open Monday through Friday. But during this time of emergency, you may find that it's easier for you to only be open for part of the day. And maybe that best suits kind of your family's needs and your schedule as well. These are some other questions that you would probably want to consider. One is about the ABC Child Care Program. So if you're interested eventually in accepting vouchers from DSS, which would help subsidize the cost of child care, then you would want to participate in the ABC Child Care Program. This is the child care program that is operated by DSS, and if families come in and they have financial need and they want to qualify for vouchers, this program will allow families basically to receive a credit that they can take to you, and DSS will cover a portion of their child care, and DSS pays you directly. So it's a really great opportunity. The USDA food program is another program where if you're serving children in poverty, it's really a great opportunity for you to participate in this program because they will help underwrite the cost of some of your food preparations. And then you can see here some other questions about your policies and all. So this is a great form to start with because if it gets to a place where it's asking hard questions, then you may want to stop and pause and think about that. The next question is the original registration of a family child care home. And so once you begin to open, then these are the kind of questions that you're going to really want to look at for your children. You'll actually have to fill out this form with all the children's names, whether they're related to you, the number of days they're serving, the number of when they arrive, when they leave. And this is necessary for any child between the ages of 0 and 12 years of age. So it's for the children living in your home, the children who are in foster care, as well as the children who you may be providing care for. Here are some more questions on that form, which makes sure that you've read the regulations and that families have received copies of the regulations. So it's really important that you have a packet that parents receive when they enroll, and in a later presentation we'll help talk you through kind of how to create that packet and what are some important forms to have in there. But for here, you just need to know that there's really important that families have been provided that information. Here are some additional questions on that form, looking to make sure that you're registered, that you have done a background check of the central registry, but also that you have to do a background check of any person who works with kids, who is in the household, who is a volunteer, who is 15 years of age or older. So it's not just that you have a background check, but that anyone who might come into contact with children who's 15 years of age or older also would have a background check. Again, you may get some flexibility from DSS to get a 30-day waiver to allow you to start providing services while you process all of those background checks. The next form is evidence of non-conviction, and this is just basically a form that you have to fill out that shows that there's evidence that you're legally allowed to work with children. So it has some very specific language in here about the types of convictions and the types of status offenses that are allowed, and you're basically attesting that you comply with that. Form 2908 requires you to have 3 letters of reference. And so you list here the names of the person who's going to be your reference, and they sign this, and then you submit these letters of reference, and then if DSS chooses to, they will contact those references directly to receive additional information. So you can see here that you need their signature, their name, and their address and phone number. So, again, it takes a little bit of time, and then DSS will follow up with them when they choose to. Again, you may be able to turn these in and open without having any of these checks done. That would be a waiver you'd have to seek for from DSS. And then the Form 2927 is a household member list. So this is a form where you're going to actually list out the names of all the individuals who live in your household, their age and their date of birth, and then you're going to name staff persons, including emergency persons, who will be working with children. So this is just kind of a final form to make sure that you are telling DSS about everyone who's living in this household. This is just really important because if you think about it, you may choose to be an in-home childcare provider. You may choose to watch 6 kids in your home, but your 17-year-old son really may not be the most suitable person to be left alone with kids. So you may want to provide their information. You'll need to provide their information here, and then really have a conversation with them about whether or not this is a good fit for everybody. So I hope this was helpful. I know it provided a lot more questions than answers, but this is really the first step. And if going through this presentation, you feel like, wow, I can provide evidence of a background check, I think I can do all of this paperwork, then you're in the right track. And the next slide will show you links to all the DSS forms that we just covered. And now would be a good time to kind of start working through a lot of that paperwork. Stay tuned, though, to this page at greenvilleparents.com where you found this video, because we will be updating additional videos. The next video we'll be doing is about how to create a budget and how to make sure that you're anticipating all of your expenses and income, how you're going to make sure you pay yourself, and perhaps even budget money to pay for an assistant who can come in and help you as you need it. There'll be another session on how to make sure that your house is safe and the inside of your house is safe enough to be able to serve children. There'll be a session on outside services. There'll be some other sessions on kind of how to ensure that the quality of care that you provide is of high standards. What sort of activities could you do with kids? And then some other sessions kind of as needs exist. Also, there is some additional contact information here. Ann Lee Buck from Greenville First Steps is our point person on early childhood and childcare programs. So certainly email her to let her know that you took part in this webinar and have questions or don't have questions. Maybe you have additional questions that we could add to an additional webinar. Cynthia Lara is with South Carolina DSS, and she's the Director of Licensing. So her email address is here, and a lot of these questions about waivers you could direct to her individually. There are also links here to all the DSS forms. So if you click on those blue links, they will take you to the 5 forms that we just went through, so that you'll be able to download those directly to your computer, fill them out, and work on them at your home. As always, we're here to answer any questions that you may have, and we appreciate all the work that you've given to giving thought to being an in-home childcare provider. Again, it is not for the faint of heart, but it is an incredible opportunity for you to provide a service to the men and women who are providing services to help us through the COVID-19 emergency. So thanks for your time, and stay tuned for more information in future videos.